Hello, everyone. Welcome to the digital experience team. This is our iteration retro, going over things that went well and things to improve on for the last 2-week iteration. Today is April 22nd, Earth Day. So we'll start off with things that went well. I think up first is Tyler.
Yeah, just briefly, we had an awesome block of OKR planning for Q2. I thought that it just went phenomenally. I'm feeling so optimistic about the next quarter. I feel like we did a lot of really good team building. It was worth the time. It was awesome. It was great. So that's all. Thanks for everyone for doing that.
I'm next. What well for me was assigning weight to MR reviews, which I wasn't doing before because they weren't associated to issues that are assigned to me necessarily or epics. I felt that I was just able to be quicker to respond to MRs instead of 24 hours going by. I could actually respond within the hour and then set time aside to be thoughtful about my reviewing and my answers and the feedback that I'm giving. Jess.
I just feel like our cross-functional relationships are getting better, or at least on my end they are. I feel like there's a lot of trust happening both ways. Like we trust them to do their job and we trust us, or they trust us to do our job. And it's just making things easier and flow faster and gets the work done better and faster. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Stephen.
Same as yourself, cross-functional stuff. It's kind of cropped up a little bit through my OKR that it's touching on content and then technology, just like different departments. So content team are very easy to talk to and very easy to just get in touch with, and they have all the information that you need, and they're always open to suggestions and help and all the things that we can talk about. So yeah, that's the main thing that went well for me.
I think, yeah, we're on things to improve on. And Tyler has the first point.
Yeah, I see lots of good discussion in here. I think this is a small change, and I might even this might even actually still be true, and I just need someone to tell me so we do our iteration planning on a Monday, right? And then there's a week, and then there's another week, and we do our release stuff. So on Wednesdays, we have a reminder of okay, release async, tell us about your releases. Thursdays we'll have we have show and tell in the morning, and then we do a release post, and then we do this. And then that Friday, I'm what on Fridays I've been I'm okay, I brainstorm for planning on the upcoming Monday, but it's a focus day at GitLab broadly. And I love that. I love that I never have meetings on Fridays. I get a lot of work done, but I feel like I'm just missing that. I feel like I end up feeling rushed on Wednesdays because I'm I got to get this in today because all I'm going to do on Thursday is talk about it. I can't really work on it Thursday. And then there's this block of time that feels sacred to me that I just don't get to it doesn't happen in this iteration. It's not a part of the next iteration. And it's kind of these agency days, but we're getting flexible. I get weirdly stressed out on Wednesdays. I just feel super flustered. And I also find that we have the family and friends days, which are usually on Fridays. And then, so it's I want my no meeting Fridays. I just want it. I just want those, and I want them in the iteration. And I think the only change that I personally need, if you look at the dates on the top, retro 012, the heading here, if this 22 was a 23, or a 25, because the marketing milestones are pinned to the Sunday, I could just be yeah, I'm going to finish this on time because I have that Friday. So, that's just a me thing. I also know that I need to have more chill about due dates and working things. So I don't want to pitch a whole, I don't know if this needs to be a huge, I don't think it has to be a change. And again, maybe this is already the case and I have a misunderstanding about things. I would just really love to have 2 potential work block Fridays within an iteration. Even if I take one off for family and friends or time off, I just want the option, and I want to feel like I'm on time. That's all. That's my soapbox. That's the thing to improve on. And I think it's as much as just change this number that I just changed in the doc. And I see there's other comments and stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree. We should just take Friday off because it doesn't count. I don't know what it goes to. I just do other stuff. But yeah, essentially Fridays, they don't count for me because the last few iterations, Friday hasn't existed, that middle Friday. So that reduces the amount of availability I have available in a sprint. I've got to block it in. And then when Michael books, a whole half block on a Tuesday, it definitely impacts.
That makes a lot of sense. Like I could just like scope back a little bit more, and like I said before, like I'm still feeling like I'm not nailing it on my scoping. So I think I just need to continue to like work on myself to like commit to a little less each time. But I do, like I really I love a day where like no one can book a meeting and I can just work like even if I like scope back, like I still want the option to do that. And it feels like, like you said, like on Tuesdays or like yesterday, like the meeting with Cloudinary, like I was like, oh, like this is like totally cool. Like I just feel like, oh, like Monday through Thursday, people are welcome to drop stuff on my calendar. And I'm like, cool, that's fine. It's not Friday. And I just kind of want to like keep Friday as like really focused work time. And it's great to like take it off, have family and friends day. But if like it's always off for me, then I never have a focus time day. And then I have to like maybe like artificially say like, oh, Tuesdays are my focus time day. But now I'm like impacting other people's requirements of the sync time they need from me. So again, and again, milestones set to the Sunday. I just want to feel like Fridays are part of the milestone and that it's like, I just need a thumbs up for that.
So would it be reasonable then to set like a release, like to aim to release whatever we need to release on Fridays, as you're suggesting, instead of Wednesdays? Because I feel what you feel. I feel rushed on Wednesdays. Thursdays are a write-off most of the time. And I think that the reason it was set that way, and I'm making an assumption here, is because agency day was something different, at least for me when I first started. Now they're integrated into our sprints and they're no longer like, okay, come to me with what you got. I've got all day for whomever wants to sign something to us. And it's no longer like that. Might be like that next quarter, but that's not the sense that I get. So I would say.
Like to rebuttal with the releasing on Friday. I would like us to not get in the habit of showing stuff on our release videos that isn't deployed onto the live website. Because there's lots of things that can happen in that time frame of actually getting it up on the website. It's okay if it happens a little bit here or there, but I want us to get into that habit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just a real quick heads up. I totally am on board with like we can change how we plan to do things because it is stressful to release or to rush at the end of the week and try to get things done on Friday, but Friday's not really a part of things. However, just be aware, we don't want to release on Fridays because weekend, and if something goes wrong, then we got to fix it and we don't want to mess with our weekends. I would be inclined to say, hey, Monday is our release day, and that way we can have Friday to work on things. And then if we need to release on Monday, that's totally fine. That's expected. However, that also encourages, I don't want people working on the weekends. So food for thought, whenever we do it, we just need to be careful about not encouraging bad habits like, Friday releases and working over the weekend and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's, I think like also to keep it as a really small iteration, like I'm not proposing we change our release videos or even our like release date. I just want to like count Friday. I just want it to count, right? Like right now I feel like it doesn't count. And so I think maybe my proposal here is on our retro docs, our release docs, and our planning docs that we just use like Monday to Friday, and like let's not even do the Sunday. I think your point about working on the weekends is good. I think that like if we put the Sunday date in there, there's like an implicit like, hey, you could do this on Saturday, but like don't. But like so the change would be as simple as this retro 012 would be from 0409 to 0423, and like now I can sleep like that. But I think that's all I need, if that's cool.
Makes sense. Also, something I did recently is on the sprint planning doc for the next upcoming sprint, you'll notice that I changed it. So it used to say, you know, for the sprint between X and Y, and then I just changed it to for the sprint starting from. So like, it doesn't matter when the sprint finishes. It could finish early, it could finish late, it could do whatever. It's just this is the starting date, and that's what we work from. So that's another way to think about it.
That
too.
fixes it too, and it makes those agendas a lot easier to figure out, because I find that whenever I copy paste, I'm like, wait, what was the day? And I like calendar it. So I love that. Yeah, that also solves my brain.
So that's helpful for like changing the kind of mental model of when due dates are. When it comes to keeping our release videos like the one we just had half an hour ago, do we still not count stuff? Like if we do stuff on Friday that gets released on Monday or whatever, do we still show that in the following sprint release video being like, oh, we did this last iteration, it just didn't make the cut or whatever? We can do something like that, or
I think that's
old news.
I think that's actually what I did today for the video thing, because I think I actually released the video on that Friday before, but I said it was, but like it was this iteration, because like that's basically what it was. Like I don't know if it has to be super strict. I just need someone to tell me that like the work I do on Fridays is part of something.
Yeah, I think doing the thing where we've like, oh, this is something that is work in progress that will be finished tomorrow, like makes sense to me.
The last thought I have here is that iterations are a planning tool. We're not supposed to be like stressing or, you know, having the iteration inform the work to a large degree. It's basically like, this is when we think it'll get done. It may or may not. You know, to Tyler's point about having Fridays count, totally on board with that. But yeah, like it's good to be flexible about iterations. So yeah, we spent a lot of time on this one. Maybe we want to go on to the next item.
Am I next? Yeah, I think I'm next. Okay. I'd like us to formalize process and communication about our deployment strategy surrounding the release post, because there were a few that came in this week, and I don't feel comfortable deploying things that have big system changes, or even just minor, like add a new dependency. But we don't have any formal process and way to communicate that to our partners. Like, oh, we probably shouldn't be deploying giant things the same day a release post is getting pushed. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree that it's maybe we should take into account basically whatever day the release team's doing their thing, and just, you know, so that's one example. To Lauren's point, it's only one example and there could be others. But just thinking out loud here, like maybe we just don't release on the product days because we know that's when product's going to be releasing and we don't want to be impacting each other or stuff like that. But yeah, it would be great to have a deployment strategy overall.
I think this might be like a low-tech solution is like add a calendar event to digital experience calendar that like, excuse me, like calendar event that just says like, hey, it's release post day, so that we all have visibility into it and like don't merge in. And then like we could toss that in the handbook too. I think the handbook actually shows our calendar. So if we add the calendar event to the digital experience calendar and it just says like release post day, don't push big about changes, like that communicates that. And then if someone does like request something, we can like look at the calendar and like point them to the calendar or the handbook page and say like, hey, just a heads up, like it won't go out today. Here's why we wrote it down.
Makes sense. I also kind of along those lines is this will help with external partners. Basically, like if you can say we can have a process that we document somewhere that's like, hey, if you need us to not release on a day, please let us know, and then we can add that to our calendar so we're aware. kind of along those lines is for internally, right? Like we all, to some degree, know what we're working on. So for example, I know that the plan is to release Monday for the Ruby 3 or whatever we're working on. My plan was also to release the pricing test on Monday. I can coordinate that because I know the two are happening because I'm an internal team member. Someone external wouldn't necessarily know that. So maybe adding something to our, requesting help section that says, hey, if you need us to not release, let us know. Or at least for the big breaking changes. We can still release small things in content and whatever. It's not going to hurt anyone, but like something like this, yeah.
I think I'm next if no one has anything else to add. All right. I just wanted to add a note to account for taking time off and planning. I think this was like just exaggerated because I had taken time off and then we had the offsite. So it was just like I had a lot of time that was just like blocked out of my schedule. Some of which I like knew at the beginning of the iteration and other things that like just happened. And so that's just something to keep in mind. I think like I don't think there needs to be any action item. I think it's just like that experience of like take that into account. Things will always come up as things do. And so like be conservative with your estimates because there's things that, sometimes there just is a 4-hour meeting on your calendar when you didn't expect one. So, and I think that's okay. I had a point for encouraging people to write smaller MRs. Rebasing like really big MRs have been nasty in my experience. And I think we've all experienced to some capacity like having to, figure out like what is what, and that can be like a challenge for people. I just don't know like how to do that.
I remember. Go ahead.
Strong second. For like our repo slippers, maybe we could just set a general thing like no more than 10 files change for an MR, and we can iterate from there, reduce it or increase it if we need. In the dub repo, that's not going to be the case, but if we can work internally on us keeping it down.
Yeah, if it's like a guideline, I feel fine with that. I would be concerned about like a linting rule or something, because sometimes like Laura had a really good MR today that's like it's like 45 files changed. It is very easy to understand. It's like very easy to reason about because it's the same change across four. It's like this isn't dub. It's not in slippers, but like I consider that a very small MR because it's like the same thing over and over again. It just has to be each one. But I think like as a yellow flag, if you see like double digits files changed or like huge changes, like I think maybe I think this is a practice thing. I think this is just we all need to like think about it and try, and I don't know if there's a process other than like really restrictive linting rules that would like make this happen automatically. I think we just need to, self-improve at iteration. Maybe we all make a commitment to go to the next iteration office hours with Sid, right? Like I haven't yet actually gone to one of those things, and I imagine that that's extremely useful. So maybe something like that.
Yeah, we had a like checklist at my former company that was like every time you were making an MR, the MR checklist included a line that was like, is this change over 400 lines difference? If so, please explain why, kind of thing. Like just to stop and make you think. Like it was kind of a barrier that was, you could break through it if you wanted to, but I know that we do have a MR checklist that we sometimes use. Maybe we can add a point to that. But yeah, the actual amount will depend. We'll see.
I was kind of thinking along the number of lines changed as something as a potential, although it also can be annoying to count. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other, right? Like we can do 10 files changed and we can do number of lines changed and some combination thereof or whatever. But yeah, basically just be aware as you're coding, if you end up making something big, you're like, oh, this is going to be a big MR. Maybe I should try and break it into multiple. And that's not always a clean break. My experience at other companies has been like, you need to make this change. It's going to happen across hundreds of files. There's no way to mitigate that. then what you can do is you can kind of have this feature flag or branch strategy, whatever you do. Like basically, if you know that's going to happen, try and come up with a strategy.
Okay. On a similar point, process for updating Tailwind config. It affects CSS everywhere. That's honestly like the big rebase usually comes with conflicts with like Tailwind configuration. Not so much in like the configuration file itself, but like the CSS that's like output, because if you change the configuration, that means you're changing the name of the classes, which means you're changing like vast amounts of like class names, which is usually where conflicts lie. I would love for us to iterate on that. Again, I don't have an answer, but I just wanted to raise a point.
Kind of along those lines, I don't have an answer for the Tailwind config specific example, but as we're building out blocks in Tailwind, like a video card or whatever, we could within each particular block say one example of a testing location. So you can say, hey, if you're changing this, please at least go check this one other spot when you're changing for what you're changing and why. Obviously, that doesn't help with the Tailwind configuration because this change is going to affect everything, right? So, but that was something else that popped into my head is related.
I'm going to grab a link to a code snippet. In Storybook, there's a way in your view components to use inline comments to auto-generate documentation in the stories. I've done it for like a handful of things, and it is as straightforward as underneath the first script tag, you start a comment with like 2 stars. You do the long form JavaScript comment, and then you just write into it, and it just auto populates. And I think Markdown, and I think it's technically Markdown in there. So I will, as conversation moves forward, I will find that link and show you all an example of the thing.
Why can't they just say that like in the docs? Like, why can't they just like?
It is really hard to parse out from that documentation. I had to, the Storybook docs were not clear. I had to go to the Storybook repo, look at how they made it happen, and then go like trial and error a couple times to get it. So moreover, I suppose I should probably document it for ourselves and maybe contribute back to them.
I was about to say like I think we've like created our wealth of Storybook knowledge. I would love for us to spend like a half day at some point to just like push that back out into the world so that like other people in the future don't have to like do what we have to do to figure these things out. So, and that being said, Storybook is an awesome tool. Like, I don't think we would have gotten to where we are without it, but the docs for it are not great. And there's no real direct competitor that does what Storybook does that's open source. So food for thought.
Sounds good. I'd like to keep us moving along. These are all great discussions. So I think up next is Jess.
Yeah, so I think the first one for me is just a lesson learned. When we had this pricing page update, originally just supposed to be like a copy change. And so I was like, oh, we don't even need a design issue. This is going to be like literally just copy and paste. And then we did need a design, and then we needed another one and another one. And I never made a design issue. So I haven't been able to like track my progress or my work. And like I said, I think that's just a lesson learned that like as soon as you realize there is going to be work, or maybe even preempt it and close the issue if you don't need it, but definitely learned that I should make an issue. And then the second thing is kind of in the same vein of this pricing update. Like it changed so much just over the course of the week that I had a really hard time judging how much time I should be spending on it, or how much time I even did spend on it. And I think that there's like maybe exceptions to this project because it's, there's a lot of upper management feedback coming, and that's like, so you have like the sense of urgency, but then also it takes a long time for that feedback to get to you. And so there's like a lot of coming back and forth to this particular project. And I don't really know how to judge how much time that's going to take. And it's like, it's not a normal project. Like normally there's like some sort of pretty good feedback loop happening, and you kind of know the cadence that's going to be. But in this one in particular, like it was like give something out, you know, get it back for like another day or something, where normally it might be like an hour. So I don't know if anyone has any ideas on how to judge those kind of projects and just like how much time they would take. But I was like, yeah, I went from being like, oh, I have nothing to do with this to I probably spent a full day this week on it instead.
Yeah, so this technique I'm about to recommend isn't necessarily applicable in all situations. Like if, you know, we're working on a pricing page and it is highly cross-functional, it's going to have a lot of iteration, then it is going to be hard to judge. But sometimes it's okay to say, hey, for this particular iteration, I've time boxed myself at, you know, 1 day's worth of work. We're about to exceed that. Can I, you know, file away any of this for suggestions for next time? And can we kind of wind down? You know, or you might say, I was time boxed for, you know, 1 day. It looks like it's going to take 2. I'm going to have to close out this other project instead and delay that till next time. And, you know, just be aware that all this iteration is going to be, you know, causing other projects potential issues. And that may be fine because, you know, this is a highly important project. So it's okay to boot other projects, but it just kind of puts into people's minds that, oh yeah, all this iteration is costing us something, or you know, we don't have to do all the iteration now, we can do it next time. So time boxes can be a good tool for that.
It's me next, I think. My one was sort of OKR related, but I guess it might somewhat resonate with some people. So the issue that had the OKR in it, then last week we discovered that there was another pretty much like a sister issue that was almost identical to that. And not only was there another issue, but there was a lot of work done on that issue. So we linked the two, and then the person from the other issue kind of chimed in on ours, and they were poles apart. Basically, there was a difference of opinion. There was a different idea of how we go about this work. And at the time, I thought, well, shit, that's going to derail us. It's going to put the brakes on. We're going to have to stop. We're going to have to rejig things, and that's ultimately not the case. However, having some sort of prior knowledge that something like that was in existence would have helped that half a day lost of thinking, well, everything that I've stuck on my wall here is not worth doing. But there were also some other snippets of some of the pages that I'm working on. You know, if we want to make changes to those with code, there are actually people who own those pages and own the code, and I never knew that. So it's fair enough. You could, I think Jess says it's better to ask for forgiveness. So just do it, and then if someone's like, "What happens?" Like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that," as opposed to asking for permission. Not saying that that's what we should do, but it is a strategy that may or may not work. But I guess that discovery kind of opened up a few things for me of like, you know, I know we're all remote, but there's always the possibility that somebody's working on something very similar to what you're working on. And there's no designers on this OKR at all in this other one. It's all engineers, it's all developers, and they're kind of come up with you know, taxonomy decisions and navigation decisions and categorizing things in different ways. And you know, I don't think there's anything that we can necessarily do about that, but definitely open my eyes up a little bit to the possibility of discrepancies across different things. So I don't know, slight rant there, but you get the idea.
I added a link that I foresee this happening to a proposed OKR to handle our DevOps tools comparison pages, which I think is in our group's OKRs as well. And that's one that's in strategic marketing. So I think, yeah, we should figure out how to come up with a process for that.
Cool. Looks like that's what we have for the, wow, that's a long list of things to improve on this time around. Let's go for some action items here. Lauren.
Yeah, process for, so if you make an MR in slippers and it updates components, since you made that MR, you know what changed with those components. You should be the one that starts the MR in dub to at least get it started and say, hey, it's linked back to this MR in slippers. and take a crack at getting that started, because a lot has changed, and I have a feeling that a lot of our components in dub are already out of date.
Yeah, I added one of the comments there that I just made some changes to slippers, blog confetti stuff that I'll need to bring into dub, which it'll be kind of my first time doing that. I know that we have like a HTML to HAML converter that will do things, but a lot of the blog stuff is like Ruby. So I don't know if there was a simple quick fix to like translate things into Ruby, or if I can just manually go in and change those class names that have been updated in slippers. I'm not sure the best way to do it, but worst case, I'll just manually change the class name.
There's a doc somewhere in slippers about that a little bit, or maybe it's in an MR and needs to get put into a doc. I'm of the opinion that when you do the migration work, you will have better time if you write in ERB instead of HAML, because what you get out of Storybook is HTML, and ERB is a superset of HTML rather than an entirely different syntax. So I think you'll just like have a nicer time. But the answer, like, there isn't a better way right now, and that's like we've come up a couple times. Brandon made another issue for it. Barker and I talked about it this morning. Like, we just have to get to a place where like we have view static tooling in the thing. Until then, it's just duplicate work, and like there isn't a better way. Like, and this is just like the iterative nature of it all. So yeah, but I think that this suggestion is the right one. I said most qualified. Barker clarified with most context. I think that's the right answer. Like, if you make a change, you have the context. Like, bring it with you for now.
And don't be creating any files. Like it's just swapping out class names, maybe adding a little bit of extra HTML. The minute there's like new components getting added in dub, then it's out of scope, I guess.
That sounds good. Yeah, that's all I was worried about, was that like that's the way I was going to do it, and if there was some other way, some command or something I was missing. But yeah, okay, awesome.
No magic command yet.
I quit.
Someday.
Cool. We have a couple other action items to do that are small follow-ups from what we discussed earlier, but I believe that finishes off our retro. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time.